So in this video, you are going to see how you can leverage AI to create journeys, enrich them, basically speed up your workflow and your process. As we all know, creating journeys, managing journeys, updating journeys can be a very laborsome process, but AI is here to make things easier for us. We're going to explore what are the current possibilities, what are maybe still the current limitations. You'll follow along with me and Justas from the very scratch, like blank slate, to going step by step, uploading files, creating insights, creating opportunities, extracting opportunities. So you'll be able to follow along in each step. This is going to be a long video. We're going to be very in-depth and detailed. If you want to fast forward or skip to a specific part that is of interest to you, we've added chapter markers to this video below, so you can fast forward or just enjoy the full ride and follow along with us. As I said, I'm joined by Justas, and Justas, it might be interesting for the people who don't know you yet to introduce who you are and what you do these days.
I always hate doing that. But yeah, I'm a product manager at TheyDo. We are building a customer journey management platform, and my team specifically, and I spend most of my days working on AI-powered solutions. So the most exciting stuff is, of course, what we're going to demo today, which is how can you actually leverage this new technology to speed up your work process, and I find it more importantly, uncover some truths or insights that you might have otherwise missed. Like AI is kind of good at that. So that's primarily what I do.
Awesome. And for the people who don't know or haven't heard about TheyDo yet, could you give a 2 or 3 sentence summary?
Sure. Yeah. So it's basically software as a service, cloud-based. So you only need the browser, number one. It is software at the end of the day. We are a startup, a Dutch-founded startup, which is very cool. We've been live for a couple of years now, actually, 80 plus, going strong. And we're working with some awesome customers, from Lufthansa to Volvo, to others. So we're covering a wide variety of industries. And as I've said, at the end of the day, it's all about not just mapping customer journey maps, but actually creating living, breathing customer journey maps and building out
Holy
these
Grail.
huge, the holy grail, and building out all the frameworks, so you could actually start running your business through our customer-centric lens. So it's, I'm very, very excited to actually work at.
Awesome. And TheyDo have been a partner, a sponsor of the show for the last 2 or 3 years already. So I've been following your journey very closely, and it's exciting to see where this is going. Cool, Justas, awesome to have you on. I know that you know a lot about this stuff and will be able to show us a lot of details, not just the superficial things about the hype of AI, but actually what does it do and what are the limitations. One thing that is maybe good to emphasize here at the start, we try to find a use case, a real live use case, instead of making stuff up. So what you'll be seeing today is a journey from a service that I offer in my circle community, a community for in-house service design professionals. And of course, I eat my own dog food, and I try to run this community from a journey-centric perspective. I already have journeys. I already have qualitative, quantitative data to enrich these journeys, to create these journeys, but I haven't yet used AI to actually bring that data into my journey dashboard. And that's what you'll be seeing today. So a real life case, real service, real data, real customers. And I think that's the thing that's really exciting about our demo today. Anything to add to that, Justas?
I really liked it to mention the hype is big, the hype is huge. We're a bit afraid that the bubble would burst, but at the end of the day, what remains is true problems, real problems, actual use cases. So I'm very excited to actually share how it can work and where it might not help you even as well, just so we kind of you know what to expect. Because the technology works, but you also need to know how to use it.
Exactly. So I think we're almost ready to dive in and go into all the details. I think it would be interesting, just as if you can show us, like if somebody makes it all the way till the end of this video, what will they see and what will they have learned?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have I have a journey map essentially we can look into. So yeah, this is exactly to what Mark said. This is a customer journey map that is based off of an actual real journey map that Mark maintains. And the result that we're going to try to get to is actually a journey map fully enriched with survey data, with a bunch of interview transcripts, and it all will happen essentially in minutes. So what you can expect to see is essentially this, which is like a bunch of cards, a bunch of insights on the journey map, and we're going to go through the process step by step to show actually how to get to this, because it's not that difficult, which is what it's really cool.
Yeah, exciting. My first question, Justas, is where do we start?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, basically, I'll quickly acquaint you with how TheyDo looks like, and then I will show you, what we're talking about when we're saying survey data transcripts.
Yeah.
So this is a
this is the TheyDo dashboard. Like if somebody hasn't yet seen TheyDo from the inside, this is like one of the first things that you see, right?
Exactly. When you sign up, it looks fairly similar. I mean, probably won't have anything to jump back into. Like we have a bunch of journeys, even with identical titles, because we have a few. But yeah, basically what this is your homepage. And what's very cool, we have templates, and those templates actually already kind of scream what TheyDo is capable of, because you can create L0 topmost level abstract framework journeys, something a bit more granular like a macro journey, or something super granular like a micro journey. We're actually going to work on micro journeys today, and I'm going to show you a bit how to actually use micro journeys to create macro journeys. So templates are there. And then, quickly, there are these concepts that we call building blocks. Journeys, as I've hinted at already, they themselves can essentially be building blocks on top of more higher level journeys. We have personas, of course. We have metrics, to what Mark was hinting at as well. Like quantitative data is something that you can actually also ingest into TheyDo and enrich your journey maps with behavioral data. CSATs or any conversion metrics, you can actually set this up. Insights, naturally, is a building block, and you can actually reuse different insights across multiple journeys. Opportunities, which probably I don't need to explain to this community what that is. And of course, solutions. And what's cool, you can actually go all the way from mapping a journey, enriching it with insights, setting up metrics, setting up all those opportunities and solutions, and actually syncing those solutions with platforms like Jira, right? So you can actually track progress on, let's say, what you're developing, delivering, and then seeing the impact of that back on your journey maps. And that's what we mean when we say they're living, breathing documents. They're no longer, snapshots in time.
Nice. So we have two, or at least two routes that we want to follow today. One is saying that we don't yet have a journey at all. We just have data. And how do we get from data to a journey? And the other thing we want to demonstrate today is also, let's imagine that you already have a journey like I have about hosting a dinner table session. How do we then enrich that journey? But we'll start probably just as with the very basic. We don't have anything yet. We just have data, right?
Exactly. And I'm going to walk you step by step. Okay, well, let's do that. So basically, you can do that right here from the dashboard. I'll just click Start a Journey, and immediately what you will see is those templates that I was talking about. So the ones that you saw there on the dashboard are these TheyDo templates. So this is something that we have built, we're curating. But you can actually create your own, right, naturally, and use those. And AI can work with either, to be honest. So if you set this up the way that you prefer, like, for example, this is a journey template that has very specific needs, lanes, pain lanes. It can work with that, and then naturally needs and pains, they will end up in different lanes. or we can go with the completely blank journey where all the insights are, in one lane. So I'll actually go with just a blank journey just to kind of showcase this very quickly. And the next step is basically how we currently are working with Journey AI. So you can drop in, select a bunch of files that you have. Crucially, files need to be either in a TXT, so absolutely no rich editing, basically just plain text file format, which is actually a usual export format if you're using some transcription software. Or it needs to be a CSV, which is basically, the acronym stands for comma separated values. It's just another variant of your spreadsheets, in essence, because you can, save them as XLS documents, like Excel documents, but you always have that option in your software to actually export a CSV. So, and it's usually also one of the most popular export formats. So those are two that we support that you can select. But if you have something in a Word documents, if you have something in PDFs, or I don't know, maybe you have Confluence or Notion pages, you can actually just copy that text and paste it in this box. Like that's sort of a workaround until we will be able to kind of fully support those file formats. You still can kind of copy and paste that text and AI will kind of handle it, no worries. So this is basically a place to kind of combine all the research that you have. And I'm going to actually do that. I will select files, and there we go. Like immediately I have this. So these are 18 interviews that Mark kindly shared with me for this demo. These are real transcripts, real conversations with, as far as I understand, the Circle community. And, those are just interviews. I can actually go in and also bring in surveys. But I really want to walk you through this a bit, right? With surveys, there's a bit of a nuance, and we actually have the source file here.
So hold on, Justas. Can you go
please.
back one screen to the tab? Yeah, where you look. So for context, the transcripts or the files that you have just selected, those are transcripts of calls that I have had with members from my community who were preparing to host/facilitate, let's say, a workshop or a session.
Yeah.
So I've recorded those calls, created a transcript out of them, and that is your raw data at the moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Cool. And by the way, if you have something like that yourself, like you have recordings of your, conversations, and I don't know, let's say you don't have a way to transcribe it, I can give you a small hint, like in the file title, just kind of sharing this because I really, really like them. There is this platform called My Good Tape. Actually, it's called goodtape.io, right? So it's developed by a Danish newspaper. So it's GDPR respecting and it's using AI technology, so it can easily transcribe those interviews for you if you don't have software, yourself.
And cool. So Good Tapes. I've been using deepgram.com. But there are also, for instance, if you're using a Mac, local software tools that don't even use the cloud. Mac Whisper is one of them.
Yeah.
But there are plenty, like Zoom does it natively. So there are plenty of ways to actually move from a video or audio recording to a text file, right?
Absolutely.
Does it matter? Does the structure of the text file matter?
No, that's the cool part, right? I mean, it's basically just, it's a transcribed conversation, right? So in the best case scenario, from what I've seen, like platforms like Gong, they're doing a fantastic job because they identify the speakers. You can actually label them very beautifully, kind of structure it in that it kind of helps AI detect, there are multiple speakers. But even that doesn't matter that much, to be fair. So if it's just a transcript, just long paragraphs of text, that works. You don't even need to design the interview in any specific way, because just as researchers would do, we've set up our AI solution to work in such a way that it's looking at those quotes, extracting those snippets, putting them together, using affinity mapping as a technique, and then you kind of create these insights, out of those clusters, out of those groups of quotes. So when we're actually creating the journey map, like we're going to see in just a minute, the chronology of the conversation even doesn't matter anymore. So it can be a free-flowing conversation, absolutely unstructured, and that's actually a regular question. It doesn't even have to be in English. So
Okay.
you can work with pretty much any large language, any European language to start with. And it's going to do a fantastic job. The only caveat on TheyDo, currently we're outputting everything in English, just so you know.
Okay.
But you will retain the verbatims in the language that they were collected in.
Cool. Okay, so now we have. You also wanted to share the survey, or should we first upload or process the files? What is better?
I actually would love to show the survey as well.
Okay, let's go.
And I guess you can walk us through how you're collecting it.
Sure. So what you're seeing here is the interview transcripts. Those were preparation calls after somebody has hosted a session, facilitated a session. We asked them to fill in a survey with a few questions. Some questions are open-ended. Some questions are a rating or a score. And that data is collected in Google Sheet in this case. So that's what you're seeing here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a fairly big file, as you can see. Like there's a bunch of columns, which is great because that means there's quite a lot of data. But it also has a small nuance. And this is where it's going to be a bit more technical, but that's why I really want to walk you through this. This is touching on the hype and what's possible and what's not yet. It's very natural to want to take this whole survey data, all the responses, and kind of dump them all in one go. That's a very natural behavior. I totally understand that. But what's actually a bit better is to clean up the file a bit, to actually make sure that you're giving AI only the content that it should consider, right? In this case, like 3 words might be useful, but not necessarily, to be honest, because probably maybe it's more interesting for word clouds, recurrency, but not for what we're trying to do, essentially. Same with these, responses, which are numerical values, right? I assume this goes from 1 to 5, probably. That's fantastic input for our metrics, but not necessarily so for what we're trying to do, which is extract insights, to kind of set up the journey. So when I look at this file, actually I see 6 open field questions, like probably future session motivation, what would you do differently, so on and so forth. So one way to do this is actually to kind of keep all of them in one go and say, okay, every row essentially, no matter how many columns, is kind of one single response. If you want that would work. But if you really care and you want to kind of, and I'll show you the benefit of that a bit later, if you really want to care afterwards to see not just which survey, the insights came from, but which question, I would even argue it's better to do this, which is kind of slice it a bit more and kind of ensure that every file is its own column, its own question, in essence, right? So that's what I have here, essentially. I've created 6 distinct files from those 6 open field questions, and that will be the files that I will basically be using. So in addition to those transcripts, of which we have 18 here, we can also add, basically those surveys, which I have here. There we go, Q1 to Q6, and we can kind of bring them in one go.
So interesting. You'll be mixing and matching different, how should we, source files. So we have transcripts, we have survey questions. You'll just be mixing and matching them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is cool, right? Because then you can actually mix and match and combine, and I'll show you all the benefits of that.
All right.
As we go.
Okay.
There's one also additional thing to mention, and this is for heavy template users. So if you have, like, we're creating a completely new journey here, right? And if you have a template which you crafted really well, and I know some folks who actually have very clear standardized templates, and you want AI to respect it fully. So in this case, like behind, in the background, you see I have a phase called before, a phase called during, and a phase called after. If I would say, I just want AI to respect this and sort everything into those 3 columns, into those 3 phases, you just need to uncheck this box. And then AI literally will just, respect that. But by default, it's on because it's a fresh journey. So so AI will be able to override this, which is exactly what we're going to do.
And can you tell us about the sentence below this checkbox? Your data is never stored.
It's an important one. So one principle that we follow, and I like saying this because we're a European company, is that we really care about your data privacy and data security. And we have all the key certificates, but we have those certificates only because we really, really make sure that the data you're uploading here stays yours. So even though there's a foundational language model behind the scenes, like we use a bunch from OpenAI's newest models, like o1, 4.0, we're actually playing around with o3, to Anthropic, Claude, Sonnet, for example, which is a fantastic model, Sonnet 3.5 version 2, which is weird. You have 2 versions in the title. So there are various different models that we're playing around, we're using for different purposes, which is why it's so important to make sure that what you're bringing in is only used in the model to extract, what needs to be extracted, which is insights. But the data is never used to train that model. And that's achieved because the way it's set up through our cloud infrastructure, which ensures by contract with Amazon and Microsoft, the data is never used. So there's that responsibility there. We even have customers who actually want a more custom deployment, which is what we're also kind of building towards. So, for example, we could even use an open source model, hosted locally is in our own cloud. So, there's a bunch of things we can do just because of that. That data definitely needs to be yours and can be as much.
Awesome. Good to mention. Important to mention. I know this will be a huge thing for a lot of people. Can we press the button start uploading? Because I'm excited to see what will happen. Or is there anything else that needs to be covered before we do that?
No, not in this screen. We're gonna see a new one here, right? So all the files are being uploaded. We're recording this, and probably when you're gonna see this will also look a bit different. Hopefully, because we're constantly improving the interface and the usability of this. But what we definitely see is a necessity for this step, which is not only is it good for AI to know what exactly is that file that it's going to work with, it's actually good for you afterwards when we're going to trace back. We're going to see that in a few minutes where the insight came from. You actually will be able to see, this file and this file was what? Well, it's an interview. Or this file, well, it was a survey. Or if you have a bunch of support logs, like, transcripts from your support service or chats or email, even threads, right? That is its own type, right? It's completely different than a research interview. And of course, feedback is also a different kind of a source. So think, App Store reviews, Trustpilot reviews, you can actually also, bring them in and tell AI, this is feedback in essence. So most of these, of course, are interviews. In just a second, it will start marking them as such. And
so
then again,
I can imagine one of the first questions will be, but I have a different data type, or I have a different source type.
Good. Let us know. To be honest, I mean, we have intercom here. Please use it if you say and feel like I don't see a type that I care about. Definitely, we'll look into it. But we've built this working with our customers, our design partners, and we kind of landed on these 4 major categories. So hopefully they kind of capture most of cases.
And this is not just, this is one for labeling for yourself to, in the future, retrieve and know what it is, but it also instructs the AI in a different way. Is that correct?
Correct, exactly. And I will be a bit more technical, but maybe some folks will appreciate it. So naturally, the way you yourself would be reading an interview is a bit different the way you read verbatims in a survey, right? An interview is much more in depth, right? An interview has a bunch more context that it can give to that quote. With a survey, it's a bit different, right? You're trying to make sense out of that single sentence or a couple of sentences. What the general gist of the problem or complaint or maybe a gain is. So because they're a bit different, we also designed a different way for AI to kind of process those sources. So literally, you're telling it, if it's an interview, read it as an interview, as a human would read an interview, trying to look and understand, what the conversation is about. With a survey, it's different, and it's also important because with a survey, you don't want to drop any of those quotes, right? While with an interview, probably it's more about looking for those nuggets, right, and maybe ignoring some stuff. So even the way you kind of take those quotes, those verbatims out of those files differs just because of how the file is structured, right, and what the purpose of the file actually is.
Nice. So basically, in the background, you're prompting the AI to process the files in a different way, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But the reason why you can mix and match, right, is because if you have those quotes, if you extract them, right, then it doesn't matter that much anymore where they came from, right? If you're looking for those themes, you're mixing and matching those sources, but that's really important in the first step, which is extraction. And it's more important in the last step, which I'm going to show as well, which basically helps you understand the importance of that insight. A good example is it just based on quotes from one person, or is it based on quotes from multiple interviews and maybe supported with additional survey data, right? That just has different potency, right? Different importance, and that's something that we can actually do if we know that the sources are distinct, different.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
I see extract snippets. How do you
Yes.
What is a snippet? How do you define a snippet?
Yeah, it's an internal debate we have. In a human language, probably this would be quotes.
Okay.
But we have noticed in the industry as well that one particular term is being adopted more frequently. So that's snippet. But it's basically just a bit of information, a bit of qualitative data. But what it actually is a slice of that verbatim quote. So that's why it's a snippet. That's why that term is used. I have a personal preference. I find quotes maybe to land better. But knowing that you will be using different kinds of platforms, we're also kind of sensitive to that. We actually want to use similar terminology, so you wouldn't be confused. Like why one thing is called a snippet in one platform, a quote something else, and then verbatim maybe in a third platform. So we kind of said, okay, we're going to follow the market.
Cool. Okay, so now I guess the exciting moment, like you've got a bunch of unstructured data,
Yes.
and now we're going to do something with it.
Yes, and with the click of a button, what I should see, there we go, is this. So unfortunately, this will take a few minutes, but I wonder, Mark, how long would you say would it take you to go through 18 interviews and let's say your own survey?
Ooh, days, probably. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to encourage you to maybe sit and stare at the screen and wait for the progress bar to complete, but it should be done in maybe 10 minutes, basically. So you still kind of need to go make yourself a coffee or kind of go and do something else. We're going to come back to it. But I actually have this already kind of done, so we can at least go in and check what the result is. Yeah.
In the background, now it's actually the AI is using the prompts to go over every file, and then it's extracting snippets from every file, and then probably some other magic is happening. And if you wait 10 minutes, drink your coffee, you come back and see a screen like this, right?
Exactly.
All right.
And we can basically go through it bit by bit, so you would understand literally what to expect in this case. So to start with, again, right, we have the phases, which technically, like if I can be technical for a bit, is similar to labeling in a way, right? For AI, it knows that it's mapping a customer journey map, but it's actually classification, right? It's trying to create a category, a subcategory, and then see which particular cluster of quotes, an insight, belongs in that subcategory and then the major category, right? It's just that visual representation, with a chronology basically that we find so striking and powerful. But for AI, it's a fairly easy job because it says, you know what, this is all about awareness and engagement, which is nice, right? There's a need for service design, and then probably based on that need, well, there we go. I participate in events and workshops. And then what do I do after that? Well, I collaborate, I plan engagement with my teams. Maybe I learn and develop. Maybe I implement some changes, and then I reflect and grow, and then I continuously improve. And sometimes you will also get an unknown, which is where AI will say, you know what? It's an important insight, like in this case, a need, dark patterns in service design, but it doesn't fully yet necessarily know where to put it. So it's, again, this is where you as an expert come in and you say, well, if it's a valuable insight, probably I will know where to put it. So in this case, we decided in a way that if this happens, if some insights are still, or it feels like they're important, you won't lose them, only just because, AI didn't know where to put it. So that's
just I see that this journey is called customer journey mapping. So what are we looking? What is this data that we're looking at?
Good question. Well, Mark, it's your data, right? This is basically if I open any of those insights, like there's even this button called Trace Back. It even will open up the very first interview here, right? So this is the data that we use to upload. So what you can see here is, if I kind of even collapse them all, there we go. So this one single insight, this one pane, team size and efficiency, is based on 4 conversations you had, in May, in June, in September, and October. And you can actually see the particular verbatim quotes, right?
Wow.
That it came from, right? So what's cool is the fact that, that color should also kind of help you understand how positive or negative this is. Like yellow in this case, color coding would suggest that it's maybe more towards the red or maybe just a tad bit neutral. You can actually click here and actually see that, it's just a bit over 0. So it's maybe a bit more neutral, but it's an important one given this specific insight. So this is literally mixing and matching, in this case, 4 interviews. And this counter 6 basically means that it's 6 quotes that were used to create this particular insight.
And the experience impact is a score based on sentiment, or how is that defined?
Exactly. So every time we extract a quote, no matter where it came from, we've built our sentiment scoring engine with AI, of course, to try and assign a numerical value to the underlying sentiment. So the positive and the negative with that. Well, the negative, it's only using text, right? Because we don't have maybe the nuance of tone or anything else. But even with that, we're seeing kind of good results, to be honest. But even then, we believe, again, you're the expert, especially if you yourself ran these interviews. Maybe you will recall, how the conversation sounded. And you might say, you know what, this is not actually 0.2. This actually is -1, And that accordingly, as you can see, can be changed. And this becomes a red.
And -1 would be that it has a negative impact on the experience.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's a slider tries to represent the intensity from 0 to 2. And of course, it also tries to combine into one slider, is it positive and a negative? So from -2 to 0, it's more to the negative side. And of course, from 0 to 2, it's positive side. And actually what we base this on is this, well-known experience curve, right? Where it also kind of goes from -2 to 2. So it's basically a 5-point scale with 0.1 intervals. And you can see, in this case, where exactly, the negativity sets. Like in this case, it sounds like utilizing tools is where it's the most negative comparatively, right? So yeah, this is why it's designed like that, to make it a bit more objective.
Okay. And this is like the almost like the review process that you need to do as a service design professional. You can either trust AI fully, or you sort of do a sanity check, like, okay, what are the sentiment scores? What is the evidence? Do I actually also agree that this is relevant, right? This is the sanity check that you need to do, the human in the loop kind of phase.
Exactly. Well, that's a nice technical term there. It's human in the loop. Yes, exactly. And what you are able to do, well, one thing is what I already kind of showed you. You can actually review that experience impact and correct it if needed. You can also review those quotes and say, you know what? Oh, there we go. We've just completed it.
So less than 10 minutes probably. Yeah.
There we go, which is nice. So you can review those quotes and say, you know what? Maybe this actually doesn't fit here. So maybe I just will unlink this one. And that's you kind of, again, that's you curating in a way, right? You're saying,
right.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So I'll just kind of clean this up and just leave that. So yeah, you're always in the loop. You always are the final decider, and most crucially, because we're still in what we can call, there's this banner here, sort of a staging phase, right? You haven't accepted the results yet, you haven't rejected the results, but you already are able to kind of work with them, review them until you have them fully saved.
So in this phase, when you're starting out blank, and you have a bunch of rich data, this review step will still require some careful attention, some time, some dedication, because AI will uncover a lot, right? So this will be an interesting exercise, especially when you're starting from scratch.
Exactly. And I would also argue that it's a good trust-building exercise, right?
For sure.
Because you really want to know that it works, that it does a good job, and then afterwards, probably if it's doing a fairly good job, maybe you will do less of it. But it's an important moment in reviewing and mapping actually the journey.
Yeah, can you go back to one of these cards? I saw that you can unlink a quote, but you can also link new quotes.
Yes,
I see it. How does that? Where are my quotes? Like, is there a central place where they are stored?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is, but it's not yet visible. What we're planning on having by end of this quarter is a dedicated data hub where you will see all these files that you've uploaded, and then if all goes well, of course, you will also see the quotes that were derived from those files. So that will be the central place. However, to your point, right, we added this option because maybe sometimes you haven't recorded a conversation, or maybe you have captured some note in passing, and you just kind of jotted it down. You can easily do that here and say, I don't know, people told me that team size matters, right? And maybe let's say that's something that you care about. You just can click add it, and it gets added as a note, essentially. And that note, you can also assign an experience impact to it. So like in this case, minus 1.5, right? That's a sort of a visual bug that we're working on because I'm on a development environment. It should show a beautiful face here, similarly to how you see it on the card, but somehow, can't see it.
So with every data source data that you add and upload to TheyDo, you are building your quotes repository, your insights repository, and then all the abstraction layers on top. You're really this really allows you to process like magnitudes of data, right?
Exactly.
At some point, when you're doing this manually, there's like just a physical limit. I'm imagining seeing like all those sticky notes on a wall behind you, and you're trying to do affinity mapping, and there's just like a limited amount that you can physically fit on a wall and that you're mentally capable of processing. But now you basically have an unlimited space on your wall to put sticky notes, and the affinity mapping can be aided with design because it can actually understand all those sticky notes, right?
Exactly.
Nice.
And I don't know if this analogy will be good, but it's the same way how I would say we measure car engine power with horsepower, right? It's something similar because you could say behind the scenes, what it's trying to do, it's actually trying to do what you do, just multiplied by n. All right. So AI also has a thing called attention span in a way, right? It can't handle everything. So we are slicing and dicing it just to make sure that it can process this very fast. But you can measure in the amount of researchers, service designers that would have to do this job, or how much it would take you yourself, which is why I asked before, right? So you're kind of accelerating this, so at least you can kind of get to that final presentation as fast as possible, and then focus on what matters. Quickly reviewing and making sense, of all of this. So that's why kind of in my head it sometimes is comparable. We're building an engine, but we can still refer back to how we do it and say, how much more powerful it can become.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about the score, not for the sentiment, but I see a score on the personas here on this card. Is that also AI generated? Like, what is that?
It's AI aided for sure. So I will show you what it can do, or where you can use it, and then I will break it down. So,
all right.
Literally in this case, where you have so much, right? Probably an instinct that I personally at least have. I first want to understand, okay, like this is a lot, but like what's most important? Where should I pay the most attention? Just the same way this kind of indicates that maybe I should pay attention in this step. There's also a way to kind of distill this down to the topmost stuff. So we have filters, and under insights, we have the score. And with the score, you are actually able to go down to top 10, right? So the journey will refresh in just a second. There we go. And we can even zoom more and say, you know what, I actually care about pains only, right? So we can actually see what people are most concerned about, in your community. So the same card that we looked at before, it still comes up. And then everything else kind of comes up. So we see organizational strategy, team dynamics, challenges. That is because, like we can actually open this one. This is a fairly bigger one. Challenges in measuring human experience. This is possible because of that score. And what the score does, it basically combines a couple of things. The volume of information that you've collected in that particular insight, the diversity of that information. So again, is it coming from one person or multiple? And the sentiment plays a huge role here, right? Because it's all about measuring the intensity of it. So those are kind of the dimensions that we're working with. And what it comes out to is two factors. One is what we call the impact factor, which is basically the summed up value of every single experience impact, as you can see here, set on those quotes. It's a summed up value, absolute value. So -1 + 1 = 2, essentially. So that's the impact factor, so magnitude. And then the second one is reliability. So in this case, you see, well, this is actually based on 3 interviews, which is why reliability factor is 10%.
How could we get the reliability factor up?
By mixing different sources. Exactly, right? So there's a couple of things happening here. Again, we designed this working with our design partners, and what we learned is everyone wants to get to that 100% reliability, but they're also wary that we wouldn't dilute the potency, of what reliability is supposed to be. So one principle is you will never get to 100% if you're just relying on one type of data source. Right? It really needs to be triangulated across multiple sources. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is that you shouldn't be able to kind of collect that data ad infinitum, right, to get to maximum reliability. There should be a sort of a thing called a saturation point, right? So with interviews, that saturation point is 20 interviews, 20 conversations.
My gut feeling was telling me 15.
There we go.
Funny.
So we're fairly close.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the second principle. And then there's also a baked-in weight. So because, as an example, right, the survey data, we saw it, it's crucial, it's important, it's interesting, but it's only just, I don't want to, I hope this word will work, but I will call it a bit more shallow compared to an interview, right? So that's what we kind of say with the weight. We're saying that survey data, even though it might be more massive in volume, just because it's a bit more shallower, the weight is lower than an interview, right? Because the interview, you're digging deep. With the surveys, you're going wide, right? So that's why we kind of said, if you have more interviews and more support logs, that's more T than just survey, in essence.
Yeah. It's you mentioned shallow. Another word could be richness. How rich is the data?
That's a better word. That's a better word. Yeah, it's less rich than an interview. With interview, of course, you're getting the full picture.
So you sort of quickly skimmed over this filtering step, but this is like, for me, this is the game changer, because if we go back without the filter, you sort of are overwhelmed by, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 cards. And this is where where people usually throw their hands up in the air and like, me as the owner of the journey might still be able to sort of make sense out of this. But if I bring a teammate into this journey, they'll click away the moment like sort of it loads. Yeah. So this filtering option, that is like, for me, that feels like a game changer.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's one more baked-in thing here, right? So if I would kind of set this up again, I would say, okay, I want to show this to Mark, right? Let's say I conducted the research and Mark cares about this. So let's say Mark cares about top 10, and maybe we don't want to talk about the positives. We only want to talk about the pains and maybe just kind of understand the needs as well. So we kind of combine this. So this view that we now got, actually you can save it.
Ooh.
Right? So, yeah, I can actually say, well, this is for Mark, right?
Yeah.
And there we go. This has a unique link. It's always accessible. So you can literally have a specific distilled view of that same journey rather than creating, another instance of the same journey, in essence.
Yeah.
So, it's a dynamic document in that then.
So maybe I'm jumping ahead, but let's say I'm getting survey data every month, and I'm getting new interviews every month. Can we see the changes or the progress over time?
Yes, technically you can. I mean, in the filter itself, there are these two options, right? What was created and what was maybe updated. We're looking at how to maybe even combine these two and make it a bit easier. But yes, I could go back in time and say, you know what, I would love to see how that journey looked like in the last year, or
the last 30
that.
days or the last 90 days, like what has been updated in the last 90 days. Exactly. Because that is like one of the big challenges that you start with a journey and you start updating the journey, you start changing things, and things that were relevant, insights that were relevant a year ago, like they become less relevant, but they are still in your journey, and things become cluttered and you sort of don't know where to focus. And when you have this date filter, you can always have a more recent and therefore hopefully more relevant view of the journey without losing the history, if that makes sense.
Exactly. You're hinting at one particular feature that we're exploring, which we call time decay. And if you are collecting that data super frequently, right, then maybe the potency of that data is very much fixed in time. So let's say maybe a monthly view is more important to you. If maybe you're collecting less of that data or less frequently, maybe, it's 6 months worth of data. So we're actually trying to see how to introduce that concept that when you're looking at that journey, you could basically also kind of sort of control that and say, show me essentially the most recent, information and compare it against, data that maybe I'm no longer collecting information for because the methodology changed or maybe the patterns changed. Yeah.
I'm thinking about the physical metaphor where you have those sticky notes on your wall, and when you at some point the glue of the sticky notes that you haven't touched, it dries up, the sticky notes fall on the floor, and that's okay because you haven't touched those sticky notes anyway. So it's sort of Yeah, decaying is, I think, an interesting concept.
Yeah. That's a good visual method. Very, very, very good one.
Yeah. So just as okay. So far, we have collected a lot of quotes, extracted a lot of quotes. We have bundled or done some affinity mapping of those quotes and created insights labeled as pains, needs, observations. And as you said, you can use your own labels probably. Now, the next step, my question would be, can AI also help us to go like one abstraction layer higher and think, okay, what do these insights actually mean?
That's that's a good one. Yes, we can. Let me do this then. Let's say this is my micro journey. I will just name this so we can find it easier. And I have a macro journey kind of set up here. So
and
because
with micro journey, you mean a detailed, like the most detailed journey, in detailed in steps, in insights, in phases, right? That's what you're describing with a micro journey. All right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. A helpful way to think about it is a micro journey is one that has a lot of quotes and quite a lot of insights. A macro journey is dealing with insights and the themes that are emerging, from those insights. So it's an abstraction layer, right? It's trying to find patterns across steps, or if you have multiple micro journeys across journeys, right? Because you could kind of put a bunch of micro journeys for a specific phase, for a specific step. Maybe they overlap. Maybe you have one micro journey about one product, maybe another for another one. You kind of put them together and then say, okay, what are the things that are emerging, across those micro journeys with a bunch of quotes, a bunch of insights.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. So
micro. Yeah. What are we going to do in a macro journey?
So it's going to look fairly similar because it's just, again, it's a distilled view. It's an abstraction. So it only has one phase, 3 steps. And I kind of took the liberty from your journey to kind of inform this. Like this is, I'm exploring a format, I'm hosting, I'm wrapping up. It's all about hosting circle sessions. And we have this library, option here where you can easily drag and drop every insight that you've had or the opportunities that you might have. But more importantly, as I've said, journeys are building blocks, right? So this is my micro journey. I can take this in and kind of drop it in here. And I can then span it across those steps. And most crucially, I then can even control how the phases of that granular micro journey map to the steps of the parent macro journey, right? So in this case, I would assume learning and development, maybe we can move there, collaboration maybe there, continuous improvement maybe here, maybe reflection goes here, sort of I kind of creates this relationship. And now that I have that, in here I have this insight lane, right? Key insights. And let me just expand it. It's absolutely open. But if I click on this button, there's the summarization option, right? So maybe I only care about pains from the past 7 days in this particular nested journey, right? So if I click continue, what it will do, it will look at those step to phase relationships. So in this case, awareness engagement. In this case, like there's 3 phases in this case as well. And it will try to look and find patterns. So just for comparison's sake, this is the macro journey. We can go in and see we had 81 insights.
Yeah, so, exactly. Generated in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I am myself curious what we're going to get. I hope it's not going to be 80. But you will see hopefully, how it will connect. And what's more important, if we go back to the score and what you can expect is, if we add up different insights with those scores, when you will see that summary, that theme, you will see that added up value as well, right? So the more it combines those insights, the more the score increases essentially. So we're going to see now, how that. Oh, there we go. Leadership and accountability. I mean, it was in that phase that came up with 11. And why is that? Because it's based on this particular one. What? That's only one. Okay, so that we had a huge one there apparently. This one, organizational strategy. I think this will be. Yeah, there we go. It's two things, right? So as you can see, those insights, they actually even have a sort of a quick summary, so we can see.
So what am I seeing here? Two linked insights. Those are the insights that are in the micro journey, and I see a text description. Is that the exact text description of the insight, or is this sort of like summarized?
It's the exact inside description. So if I open this one, with those evidence, quotes. Yeah, there's actually this AI creates this quick summary as a description. Yeah.
So we didn't even discuss this, but this is also like super relevant, because if you have 8 quotes, like one of the big struggles is always like, okay, how do I formulate this? Like, what is the wordsmithing that I need to do? And AI in this case helped us to sort of summarize or create a description, meaningful description out of 8 different quotes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Time saver, like huge time saver.
Yeah, it's what AI is good at, even though it's very hard to define what that task is, summarization, but it's fairly good at summarizing it, putting things together and trying to kind of create succinct text, so you can kind of quickly see, in bullet point. In this case, it even, it kind of hints at some opportunities, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
these are key insights. So summarized. So instead of having 81 insights that you need to go over, you can bring them back to 10. And in this specific case, we're only looking at 10 pain points, but I guess if you would generate key insights for needs, you would get a similar effect.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and in this case, it's powerful because it's, you tell it what you expect, right? So in this case, we only cared about pains, or we can only care about needs, maybe gains if you want to look into that. So you have that control to kind of tell AI what is it that you want. What is it that you expect? So in this case, you could literally get the same if I would rerun that and say, now return me needs.
And I see that you have key opportunities in here, but we also have opportunities in the micro journey. Like, what is the balance, or what is the correlation between those two?
So that's a good question. So currently, the way it's set up that you can create yourself, or you can ask AI to help you with opportunities for those particular steps, right? So if you have a journey like this one, super granular one, and let's say it's one team that is looking into it, maybe they want to look into granular level opportunities. So they can easily do that. They can actually click to reveal an opportunity, and then they will, we'll see in a second, they should get a few, one or a few kind of suggested. But those are granular level, right? If we go this level up, well, naturally, you will have an option to kind of see, you know what, maybe there's a more higher level, more strategic opportunity. So this is you having the ability currently to try and uncover those opportunities at any granularity level that you kind of prefer. So if you're presenting this to your leadership, maybe you will show it on a macro journey level. If you want to look into that more granularly, you could do it on a micro journey level. What we want to get to is actually to ensure that you could reveal across the whole journey. That's still work in progress. Yeah,
so the opportunities that I'm seeing here in the macro journey, are they based on the key insights, or are they based on, what are they based on, basically?
They're based on the insights on this journey. So in this case, this is key insights. So again, I can go back here and say, Mark, you have a fantastic opportunity to enhance your documentation and organization. Why? Because there's this pain, right? Sure. And that pain is based on, there we go, these particular, additional nested, insights, right? So those more granular insights. So this is kind of a way to hint to you that, there we go, there's an opportunity for that, an opportunity for that, and then similarly, you're kind of getting a sort of a quick
wow.
digest of what you should be able to do.
And now in our example, maybe you could say, okay, we can extract the opportunities in the micro journey, but like you said, when you have multiple micro journeys and you start combining them, multiple teams working on different stages of the customer life cycle, you put them into this macro journey, the insights and the opportunities will be across multiple micro journeys. And then, right, you really start to see the power of having this macro level. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's where it becomes so powerful, because if you are designing two distinct products and you have distinct journeys for them, if you're an organization and you care about ensuring that you're creating holistic solutions, it's important to find those patterns. So just because you can kind of put those micro journeys one next to each other and find emergent themes and then reveal these opportunities across them becomes it so much more important, because not only will you maybe find gains in efficiency, so you could allocate resources better, but what we're also seeing, you might find gaps and areas that you maybe are underserving, just because the research is compounding, essentially, right? So small snippets connected might start suggesting that maybe there's a new theme emerging, especially if you're continuing to bring in more and more and more data on a weekly, monthly basis.
And I'm thinking about an example where this would make sense. But like you said, maybe you have multiple services and every service has an onboarding stage.
Yes.
And then onboarding could be like the overlapping thing that every customer goes through, or the offboarding stage. Regardless of the service or the product that you're offering, you want to have a consistent experience there. And Team A has done some research about onboarding. Team B has done some research about onboarding. And this would be the place where you can actually combine that and sort of get a more holistic overview, right?
Exactly.
Nice. Awesome.
Or you can imagine another scenario where, you have multiple products or multiple slices of the experience, and in any place in that experience, you might encounter an issue and want to, reach out to customer support. Just because you could put them together, all those potential areas where you have to reach out to support, you might start seeing problems, for example, with how your support staff doesn't have the right access to the knowledge base, right? And maybe that's why they're not helping the customers so much, right? So there are interesting nuances that you can extract just because you can put the data one next to each other, and again, you're in the driver's seat to kind of try and find those patterns.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to say about the macro journey? Because I have some other questions. I know we're already maybe almost an hour in, but I have some other questions I want to explore with you as well.
Yeah, I think with the macro journey, that's kind of it. I'm going to say it's just a way to kind of build this out, right? Because you can go 5 levels up, essentially. Maybe one crucial thing to kind of mention is that because you can continuously update these underlying micro journeys, if you continuously run summarization, it will look if you've added anything new, and if you did, it will also recalculate the score and assign new insights to those summaries. So again, those summaries are also becoming living, breathing documents. So an easy way then to afterwards just to kind of go in and say, oh, there we go. Those are very important ones. Maybe we should work on these. And they're based.
But you do, you do have to take that as a manual step to do the summarization. It's not when the underlying micro journey gets updated that this one gets updated as well, right?
Yes, currently, yes. But you're hinting at something we're actually working right here in this room, across this wall. We're in the hackathon actually building these automations.
And somebody deployed a new version, by the way.
There we go. Yeah, that's continuously happening. I hope this won't crash,
So when you click on key opportunities on the arrow where you went into summarization, I also saw something about mining data.
You mean here? Yeah, here.
Mine insights, summarization. What is mine insights?
Yeah, let's go back to the micro journey for that, right? This is also one of those things that we need to still solve in the usability, because this lane has all three actions, but what we should only see here is essentially summarization, because we're at macro level. The uploading and mining, that's very, very crucial for this one. But for that, we actually kind of have, let's say, a journey that we want to enrich. Let's say it's a journey that we're working with. This is where this comes into play.
Okay, so what we're seeing right now is a duplicate or a copy of a real-life journey that I'm using, that I've manually created with my team, where we have manually analyzed the transcripts, the survey data, and created this journey, right? That's what we're looking at right now. I think that this is a filtered view because our journey is already much richer, but this is like, for simplicity's sake, a distilled version.
Yeah, just a few insights just to kind of show you. So we wouldn't have to deal with that, massive amount of info.
Okay, so we have an existing journey, and now let's say I have received new survey data or new insights. How do we handle that?
Well, two ways, right? I mean, if you haven't yet uploaded it, you can kind of click uploads, and you will see now, hopefully, this familiar side panel where you can, again, go in, select the files. So in this case, the survey data, and click start uploading. And you can then again specify the sources, and you can click extract snippets. That's one route if you don't have that data. Or, I will cancel this for a second. If you've uploaded that data before, and we did, because that's the journey that we've generated, right, at the start of this webinar, or actually this one that we kind of playing around with before, the data is already there, right? So I can basically go in here and say, you know what, I actually want to mine from what already exists, all that, research, all the transcripts, all the surveys. And again, similar to summarization, which is not available here because no nesting is happening, I will only, let's say, also care about just pays and needs. Click done, and because I know I uploaded it today, I'll say just in the past one day, and I'll click continue.
So how does it know that it needs to look for data that is relevant to this specific micro journey?
Very good question. Well, you kind of already answered it.
Oh.
It's looking at relevancy, like behind the scenes. I don't know how much the audience is familiar with how these large language models work, but essentially it's a statistical model behind the scenes, right? So if you yourselves ever tried using ChatGPT, or maybe any image generation for that matter, like Midjourney or DALL-E, when you type in a word like, for example, or words, cozy home, the reason why there's a high likelihood you will get a fireplace and a sofa is because those concepts are very closely related to coziness and home, right? And you probably won't find anything like, a lake necessarily with a boat, right?
Yeah.
So that's the same logic here, right? It looks at how the journey is called, what the phases and steps are, and more importantly, what the insights exist already in that journey. And that's why it's trying to look at the data and find relevant information. It's doing a fairly okay job doing that. It could do better, which is why we're investing more into this. And we actually want to give you a bit more control to kind of guide it, maybe specify not just the time range, but maybe there we go, right? Quite a lot of stuff got bubbled up. So that's why you're kind of getting this. And I would say, weather impact, balancing host prep. I think this one is a fascinating one because this basically took an insight that existed and it kind of found two quotes that match it.
Okay. And maybe something that we stepped over in the previous example, I can imagine people get scared when AI starts adding data blocks to their existing journey. Yes. And you mentioned something about accepting, staging, rejecting. Like, could you talk us through how that works?
Yes, exactly. So we are in this step, if you will, where the insights, they have new content proposed. We can call it candidate updates, if you will. And until you actually click accept or click delete, they are like this. Anytime you refresh the page, or if now Mark comes to this journey, you will see that banner, basically there with these gradients currently, right, suggesting that something was updated. Like this one, they weren't.
Oh.
That's why, they look bare as they were. So what you can do now, I can easily actually do this. I can just click delete and say too many irrelevant insights, right? And click submit. And what I expect to see in a second is this, right? So everything got removed. The score is, okay, it's a bug that probably I'll have to go and talk to the team. There we go. Yeah, now clean. Everything got reset, and there we go. We're back to the 4 insights that we had before, right? So you basically can be fairly confident that even if you want to kind of play around with this and see what AI would do for a journey that you already kind of established and you're maintaining really well, you can easily do that. You don't need to kind of spin off and create a separate one.
And how do I partially accept these things?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, let me check. There we go. Right. So partial acceptance. I mean, again, I have a duplicate. Ready,
yeah, of course.
Ready to go. So this is the same exact journey. I actually uploaded everything into this one before we started. I can go into any of these, right? So let's say I need more time for let's say need more time and prompting. I can even delete this insight and say, you know what, this is just totally irrelevant.
Okay.
Done.
Yep.
Or I can go into this one, improve listening facilitation, and maybe I'll say, you know what, the insight is good, but maybe the quote is not good, right? So there we go. I can easily do that. Or I can even go in here and say, I don't need relevant Miro board links. Maybe I just need Miro board links. That's it. I can change that as well. And in this case, I don't know if you noticed, the AI icon disappeared only because it's a way to indicate that you manually overrode it, right? You change the title, or you can even change the description, right? So you can perform all these changes, even drag this into a different step if you want, all the while you haven't accepted it. And then even afterwards, you can click delete and everything will be, purged. But in this case, I'll click accept, I'll refresh the page, and we'll see, there we go. No more gradients, no more nothing. Basically, yeah.
Okay. So just as a question, you accepted basically everything at this moment. If I would like to do a partial accept, I would need to first delete the insights that I feel shouldn't be here, or the quotes, so I need to review them, make the changes, either update titles, unlink stuff, or fully delete the insight. And then once I'm happy with everything else that is here, I click accept, and they sort of become, they get committed to the journey.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right.
And is there a possibility to do an accept on a specific card or insight? So can I, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Currently, no. Currently, it's on a what we call job level, right? One task. But it's an interesting suggestion. To be honest,
there you go, another use case. Yeah, adding to your to-do list.
There we the backlog.
But I still see, for instance, challenge in getting involvement. It's like the fourth. It has an AI icon to it, and that is because this hasn't been manually sort of tampered with, right? There has been no manual intervention. And as soon as I do some manual intervention, the AI icon disappears. Is that correct?
Yes, but only if you change the title and the description. We don't remove that icon if you, let's say, unlink something like here, right? Just because we at least currently felt, and we heard from our design partners, that unlinking is cleaning up but kind of sort of confirming the final result, but they still want to retain that reference that it was mined by AI. If they're actually overriding it, which is like changing the title, because you can completely rename it however you want.
Yep.
That already should indicate that, you tampered with it, you changed it, and it represents something different than AI initially thought it should represent.
Do we, I saw before you accepted, the message said like 24 new insights created, and I think 2 were enriched.
Yes.
Is there a visual distinction that you can see which ones were enriched and which ones are new?
So I will go back to this one. So the gradients that you saw, they're not distinguishing what was created or updated well enough yet. So basically, either it was created or it was enriched. It will have the same gradient on it. But if I open the side panel, there is this divider, right, that would suggest that there was new evidence added. So because this is a fresh insight that was created when we started the recording, that's why we're seeing, okay, this is it. So, existing older quotes, older evidence essentially would be under this one. So at least in the side panel, you can make that distinction until we'll make it a bit clearer what was updated versus what was created.
This is this is pretty amazing. I'm sort of short looking for the right words, because this is always the thing that we wanted to do, work with a lot of qualitative data, have journeys be updated, like spend our time on meaningful stuff, quote unquote meaningful stuff, and not having to deal with all the, I don't know how to call it, like the practicalities or the logistics of where do you put stuff, how do you find it again, like finding insights, finding quotes, that's already like a huge issue when you start getting into big volumes. And that amazing.
To give that perspective, like we've heard from a few of our customers, and again, this ranges on the size of the company you work at, but it can take anywhere up to 90 days to analyze 25 different surveys, to produce anything meaningful that you could show to your leadership team. That's 90 days lead time, sort of wasted in a way. Not that you wasted it because you arrived at the correct conclusions and you helped make decisions, but those are 90 days that you kind of left the money on the table in a way, right? And in turn, that I feel sometimes creates this negative feeling towards researchers, which I find it to be totally unfounded. And that's why I really, really want to help researchers, because if we can accelerate this work that you do, you are gaining back the respect that you deserve, in essence, because this is so impactful to unpack and understand and help. And only because that data is so difficult to work with, it's sometimes treated as less useful. We don't believe that. We know that we can quantify it, and that's why, those 90 days, we want to give it back to you, essentially, to spend more time with your customers rather than, sifting through unstructured files or looking for them.
Now, one elephant in the room was maybe the privacy aspect. We've already covered that. The other elephant in the room here might be, if I'm a critical researcher or I'm critical towards AI, we've looked at like, okay, it can extract insights, it can extract opportunities, but what is the quality of that? Like, what can you say about that? Like, how good are these insights?
That's a very good one. So in general, it becomes a question, what's better, 1,000 data points at 80% quality or 10 data points at 100% quality? And because we live in a world, just that I've talked about, where statistical significance plays such a huge role, I know that a lot of people who want to consume this information would always go for quantity. just because of statistical significance. So it's more of a tolerance risk question. And based on that, that's why it's a long-winded answer. We have customers who are harsh critics of the quality, but they're also weirdly early adopters because they really believe in it and they really want to help us with. Like we have a customer who manually went through a month's worth of survey responses, like 14,000 survey responses, and then used AI and built us a huge report comparing, the side by side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they themselves said, if you guys could process this, 1 month worth of data at 80%, right? Done. We're changing our ways of working.
Right.
We've started at 50, 55%, right? And last week we managed to get to 85. That's still not in production. That's still something we're tweaking before we fully will roll. That should happen next week, actually. But that's why we like the critics. But we also want to kind of mention that there's that tolerance of risk that you should evaluate. Like if you're going for 100%, I don't believe AI will ever get there. This is technology. This is not even AI, right? This is large language models. This is generative AI.
Yeah.
It won't be 100% ever. You always need to be in that driver's seat. And I think you will be the ones to get it to 100% when you will evaluate it. So it's more of a question, is it okay if we save time to get you to that 80% and you no longer need to spend 90 days, 30 days, or like you would, days, right? Going through your research and getting to something way quicker than otherwise you would.
So there's something really interesting here, and we're drifting off maybe a little bit and getting into the more philosophical aspect of using AI. One, it would be interesting if there are benchmarks comparing how service design professionals would map a journey and the insights that they would extract and how AI is doing it. Like you have benchmarks around how well AI is performing in math. I can imagine that we'll have a benchmark how well AI is performing in journey insights extraction. But the other thing that I wanted to respond to is what you said, you can't get to 100%. I think, and we know that there's a limit to how much data you can process as an individual and even as a team. And you could say, as an individual, you might get to 100%, but you will not know what the other teams are working on. You will not know what the other journeys are about. So it's really quickly, you'll have a gap, a knowledge gap. And like that 100% is only based on your existing knowledge. While with AI, you can bring all the organizational knowledge in and even like exceed that 100% because you have an even more holistic overview of what's really going on. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I think that's where the power sits. And this is where I think we're going this year is to actually go horizontal. Not only just help you do your job better, but actually try and help you find those gaps or find those overlaps working across teams, because it's all about breaking down those silos so you could do the right thing at the right time with the right size solution and not be, blocked by someone not having the context, or having a different kind of a context, or maybe you missing out on some context. I think this is where the actual unlock is still gonna happen, in essence. And I'm very excited about that.
So, heading towards, I think, the end of this demonstration, we haven't talked about how do you go from opportunities to actions? How do you look at KPIs? Like, we're going to assume that that's stuff people are already familiar with. This was really about demonstrating how AI can help us sift through a lot of unstructured raw data quickly, how to build big resource insights, quote repositories, and sort of all the additional steps that you need to take to go to insights, make these to actions, to make those actions actionable. That's something for a different video. Justas, towards I think this is a good moment to talk about what's next, what's on the horizon, what are maybe some of the current limitations that you still see and that you'd like to see addressed in the future?
Yeah, I can hint at that because, again, behind the scenes, across this wall, what we believe AI hasn't yet touched on that much, but we believe it can, is not just working what we could call knowledge retrieval, because this is exactly what we've just been demoing for hour and more than an hour, right? It's pulling that information in, trying to kind of make sense of it. The untapped potential actually sits in what is called tool usage, where you can tell it to perform a series of tasks, just as maybe you would ask a colleague or an intern even, to do. So what I did when I kind of had to click through and say, okay, I want to create a journey, I want to kind of upload these files, I want to, maybe choose that template, and then I had to wait. I could literally give it a task and say, you know what, I have these files from Mark, they're in the workspace. What I want to do, I want you to design this journey specifically around hosting a service design, a circle session, right? And that's all I kind of would have to do in a way. And that is where the industry is trying to move towards, because if that is an unlock, that basically allows us to rethink how interfaces are designed. Because you can remove a bunch of steps just because you can make it a bit more intuitive. And where it makes sense, also conversational. So that's one part of it. But that conversationality, we believe, also sits very close to search experience. So if you imagine a global search, you can also kind of say something similar and say, could you show me like what's happening in France and what's causing churn in the past month? It's basically triggering a bunch of filters, right, for you. So you wouldn't have to go through that. But at the same time, it's important how you design it, right? Because you would want to be in control of that. So that's another big rock that we want to move, which is how do we solve that conversationality so you could manually override very quick in a way. So it's very much related to that first topic. And the third thing is, of course, automations. How can you schedule these jobs, schedule these tasks, especially from platforms where you collect this data, right? So from anywhere from to
Google Sheets.
Google Sheets, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm already seeing how we'll have different quote unquote dashboards or ways to consume the journey data. I know inside TheyDo you already have different views and different dashboards, like the journey view is just one of them, but you can also look at this data in different ways. One thing that you might take into your hackathon, I would love to get a Notebook LM podcast version of the latest updates this month. So
Mark, that I have to say, our team surprised us yesterday because they literally did that.
Awesome.
And it was super funny, super funny, because they had to show us a chat interface. What it became was basically a narration on top of that. Now we're only thinking how to plug in our CEO's voice into that. So.
You can do voice cloning, and he's had enough podcasts already.
There we go.
Yeah, now that's super interesting. Justas, any final tips and tricks that you want to share with our viewers who are maybe interested in giving this a try?
Yeah, I think I just need to underscore that be mindful about the survey data, and I really want to underscore that it's better to slice it by question, because you saw yourselves, it's just a bit easier to trace it back, but for AI as well to kind of extract it. I think that's a good tip. Another thing is to just not to be afraid and try it, at least the first time around. I think it's a leap that needs to happen sometimes. But I am also wary that it might make mistakes, and I also want to encourage people to always not be discouraged or looking for another word even for that. Just leave feedback, please. Any feedback data point is so crucial. You have no idea. Like a single comment from you about what's not working can unlock a use case, for us, which we haven't considered. So the power is in your hands to make sure that this evolves better. just by you using it. That's awesome. Yeah, this technology is moving very fast.
And a very practical question, and then we'll really wrap up. Are there any limitations on how often I, as a TheyDo user, can use the Journey AI, the amount of files, data that I can process? Like, are there any quotas, basically?
Oh, good question. Yeah, if you are on a free plan, then it's 1 generation every 3 hours. But that's the only limitation, essentially. So if you are uploading those files, you saw it, you can upload up to 30 in one go. Then the next time around, you will have to kind of wait for 3 hours. But we also kind of noticed that it's good enough in most scenarios, because you need to review all that stuff, right? So, maybe it's a good cooldown in a way. So that's the only limitation currently.
Cool. And you mentioned that there is a free plan. I'll make sure that there is a link on how you can sign up for the free plan. And there's even a bonus when you do that through the link that's in the video description. So, I don't see any reason why not to give this a try. Justas, man, awesome. Thank you for this very in-depth walkthrough. I'm sure that we haven't covered a lot of things that will be interesting, are interesting. If you've made it all the way till the end of this video, make sure to leave a like, then that lets us know that this is actually helpful and valuable content. Also, leave a comment. We want to know, what is the thing that you feel I should have asked Justas but didn't? Like, what would you like to know? What should we maybe even cover in part 2? Because there will be a part 2, Justas. I'm sure in 6 months, Journey AI will have evolved, so we'll need to do an update. So let us know, what is the thing that you'd be interested in seeing in the next video. And other than that, thanks for watching. Thanks, Justas, for walking us through this. And the only thing I can say is see you in the next one.
Thank you.